Hello, welcome back to my channel. As you can see, I have a microphone. It's a lavalier microphone, so the audio is going to be a little bit different. So bear with me as I get adapted to a microphone. I don't want to hold it up to me, so I attached it to my highlighter. So now it looks like a little microphone. It looks a little weird, but I'm having a lot of fun with it actually. So, and I can record while I'm having my fan on, so it's not as hot. Like I said, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, my name is David. I make videos talking about media that I like, analyzing writing, and stuff like that. Right now, I've been talking a lot about Magnus Archives horror podcasts, produced by Rusty Quill, written by Jonathan Sims, directed by Alexander J. Newell. It is my favorite horror podcast so far. I love talking about it. And right now, we are doing the season 1 ranking video, episodes 1 through 40. I just today, at least, published the season 1 retrospective video, so check that out. This is a continuation of that, and I'm just gonna be, ranking all 40 episodes in my opinion, spoilers as well, my opinion and spoilers of my opinion. These are going to be our tiers. First, we have an S tier. The song is loud and beautiful, which is the last thing said by Jane Prentice in episode 32 Hive. The last paragraph in her statement that's the beginning of the line. That's for like really good episodes, obviously S tier. So A tier, we have Ghost Martin AU. This is the A tier. This is pretty good, like a story, a alternate universe where Martin is an actual ghost, is a ghost, and he is doing ghost stuff, and everything's the same except he's a ghost, and that's, I don't know, funny and fun, and a fun thing to think about. In B tier, we have Weird Wrinkles, which is John mentions that the statements that he listens to have some weird wrinkles to them. So there's something interesting there. There's something about them, which is why they're in B tier. Not amazing, but there's something about them. In C tier, you have Your Neighbor Staples Meat to the Walls. That's this. You are not in a very good spot right now, sir, because your neighbor staples meat to the walls. That's gonna be like a C tier. It's like, yeah, not one of my favorites, but not really bad. The really bad one is reserved for D tier. I itch all the time. Me when this episode, I itch all the time. These are our tiers, and we're gonna get straight into it. All of the episodes will have some art depicting it. Some episodes will have actual fan art from people on Tumblr, which I will credit in the video and in the description as well. So, without further ado, episode 1, Anglerfish. I'm going to put in Ghost Martin AU. It is a really, really good first episode. We have John reading out a statement about a guy who's at, what was it, closed fish, Glen Close, something, an actual street alleyway in London that people on the internet have found pictures and have found in person too. And he sees someone who's just floating there and and the guy is asking for a cigarette, and he's like, I'm not gonna give you a cigarette, bye. And he leaves. And then like there's like mentions of like people being missing and stuff like that. And there's a picture of a guy missing who had like some cigarettes, and he found those cigarettes on the floor as well. Implication that person was taken by the anglerfish. And then John's talking about other people that were lost as well from the anglerfish. It also, this is a good establishing episode, what the story is, who we're talking about, who we're listening to, why we're listening to these statements and stuff like that. So pretty good beginning to start with. Episode 2, Do Not Open. I'm going to be putting in Weird Wrinkles, which, okay, Joshua Gillespie is an amazing protagonist, and he did a lot. I I found that the more that I started like putting into the list, a lot of the Weird Wrinkles are going to be episodes that have multiple different things happening at the same time, which kind of muddles the focus for me and makes it like not amazing, but not bad. I think when episodes focus on like one central idea, uh, and don't delve into like different things, it can be more easier to consume. Joshua Gillespie is an icon. However, this episode, he is just doing his own thing, and he meets this guy named John. And John's like, do you want to take something from me, and I can give you money? And he's like, yeah, I guess. And then he does, and he gets like a coffin, which we all know is the coffin of the buried, with like "Do Not Open" written on it, and it's wrapped around in chains. Does he see who delivers it? I forget if he sees who delivers it, but he's like he keeps hearing like music from it, and it's like, ooh, open me. But he's like, it says do not open though. And there's times where he sees he's about to open it, and that really terrifies him. So what he does is stick keys in an ice bowl and freezes the keys so that when he tries to open the lock, the ice wakes him up. And somehow he lived through that for like a long time. I want to say like 3 months or something like that. And then Beacon and Hope appear with John, and they're like they expect Joshua Gillespie to have been taken, but he's not. And they're like, and John's like, uh-oh, and then John gets taken into the buried. Now, the reason why this is Weird Wrinkles for me is because it does pull in different ideas. Mainly, Stranger with Beacon and Hope, and the buried, obviously, with the coffin. However, the fear of the buried in terms of being buried alive is not highlighted here. Only the aspect of the coffin. We don't know what happens. And to any person who's not in the know of Subject 14, of the coffin, coffins can symbolize a lot of things. And so it could sort of be like something is trapped in there, or something about death. So like just looking at what the story is telling us, he's being compelled to open the door, which is not the fear of getting buried alive, but we know that that's what the coffin does. So it's a little muddled in its presentation of its horror, considering it is supposed to be a buried episode, but it's still entertaining anyways, and that's why I'm going to be putting it in Weird Wrinkles. Episode 3, Across the Street, I'm going to be putting in Ghost Martin AU. Like I said prior, this episode focuses on one singular idea with some aspects of others, but they're not highlighted so much as like details, which horror really is elevated when there's a bunch of different details that just doesn't make sense, but are not fully explained. Sometimes that really works, and it works here for me. We have Amy Patel, I believe is her name. And she's just, she's stalking a guy named Graham who's across the street. And she sees that he has this weird table that like flows in and out. The web table, which we know eventually is the web table. And he also writes notebooks, and he eats notebooks and stuff like that. But then she sees in the window a thing appear and replaces Graham and becomes not Graham, who's this just blonde guy, I think. And she's just kind of afraid. And this is introduction of the not them. This is the idea of the not them appearing and stuff like that. I don't know how common knowledge is. I think it's pretty common knowledge, but Graham is Oliver Banks's ex-boyfriend, which is like a few levels of buried in there, pun intended. But yeah, this was a really fun episode, really creepy. And I appreciate it for what it is a lot, so which is why I'm putting it in the A tier. Episode 4, Page Turner. This episode suffers for me because it's really good, well written, but it's not that scary. It's more like weird. So I don't really, it's Weird Wrinkles. So Dominic Swain is just, he finds a book that gives him vertigo, and he smells, not petrichor, it's not ichor. What is ozone? That's it. He keeps smelling ozone. and he keeps having weird dreams, but he doesn't remember the dreams anyways. And then he's like trying to find out more about Jürgen Leitner, and he goes to Pinhole Books and talks with Mary Key, who's all bald and has like Sanskrit on her skin, and uh, and then she shows him one of her Leitners, and then Jared appears later and then burns the book, and that's all that happens. Dominic Swain also sees the Lichtenberg figure, which is the first appearance of the Lichtenberg figure, and sort of introduces the idea of Mike Crew. Once again, different elements appear in this story that makes it a little muddled for me, which is why it's in a B tier. But it's still well written enough for me to be like, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, Ex Altiora is introduced here. My crew, everything is firing at multiple different cylinders at the same time, which sort of distracts, but it's still pretty fun. I like the first time that I listened to this, I didn't even register that Mary Key was bald and had tattoos all over her body, and then like that mental image is really fun as well. But yeah, it's it's B tier for me. Episode 5, Thrown Away, is going to be going in Weird Wrinkles. Less because there's a lot of things happening, more because it's kind of disconnected from the entire storyline for me. I'm taking a step back and looking at it now. It's still really well written. It's about a guy who's a trash collector, and every time you go around this one specific street, there is a trash bag full of different junk and different stuff, and it was weird. And there's like baby head dolls at one point. There was like a full manuscript in there, like long pages and stuff. And then eventually there's like a bunch of teeth in a bag, and that's a little creepy. And then one of his friends decides to like investigate, and the friend disappears, and he finds uh later in one of the bags a robotic heart, or no, a bronze heart, some heart that is labeled his friend's name, and it's implied that his friend was just taken by whatever that was. And yeah, um, uh, I know that this story was written to be like the Flesh, um, and it was before the writers, John Sims, were able to like fully like put down their ideas about Smarks 14 and the motifs and stuff like that. So they were trying to like figure stuff out at that time, anyways. And now it's been yeah, that's the word, retrospectively claimed by the extinction, by the fandom. On the wiki, at least, it says, which I can understand being in terms of excess of trash and stuff like that, which I like more than it is flesh, because the only fleshy thing there was like the teeth, but then there was doll heads, and then there was like scripts or something like that, or music or something like that. I forget exactly. Um, it's been a while since I listened to this episode, but yeah, it was creepy. It feels disconnected from the story, and that's why I'm putting it in B tier. Episode 6, Squirm. It was really funny because like the majority of the time in my season 1 retrospective video, I kept saying this episode was episode 9, but it's not. It's 6. Squirm. We have Timothy Hodge who's talking about his relationship with this one woman, and how they met at a club and they went over to his place, or her place, and she was like kind of scared, and he was like, "What's wrong, baby girl?" And she's like, "Yeah, I got really spooked by this one person. I was walking down the street, and this woman in like a red dress was there, and I was like, 'Are you okay?' And then she jumped up and attacked me, but I got away, and there was like worms, and he's like, 'Oh, I'm so sorry, baby girl.' And then they fuck, which did that? I don't know if that did anything to the microphone. Which honestly, when I was listening to this, and it went so far as to be like, and then we had sex. It felt new to hear that, because usually we have like illusions or like suggestions of things, but no, he was like, yeah, full on, we had sex, and that was really, it was fun to hear that. And then after sex, the woman explodes in a bunch of worms, and he burns down the house and runs away and disappears. And that's really fun. So, and also, this is the beginning of a big thing in season 1, which is Jane Prentice. So yeah, this one's Ghost Martin AU for me, for those reasons. And it was fun to hear. It felt subvertive, to hear that after hearing like such, like, not fabricated, but definitely like this is a story that we're telling that it feels like a story, but this felt real in terms of the way he was talking. And I like that a lot. So yeah, that's why it's going in that spot. Episode 7, The Piper, is going into the song is loud and beautiful, S tier. I love slaughter episodes, and I love the slaughter. The majority of the slaughter episodes I love, and because we only really get like one episode of the slaughter in this season, the Piper is a really good primer for the slaughter. It is not so well connected to the entirety of the story. The only thing that is there is sort of like there's a mention of a Rainer name, which I think they were trying to do something there, but I don't know what it was. But the imagery of a monster question mark with 3 heads that sings the war is just beautiful, and the way that the characters interact with each other in terms of what war does to them, and how that one guy who was found in the crater covered in someone's body, and he was like, oh yeah, I met the war. And then once the treaty was signed, he died like on the spot. That's really beautiful writing for me, and so I enjoy this episode a lot. This is the only slaughter episode in season 1. The only other slaughter episode I can maybe count is Skin Tight 28, but that's more stranger, and we don't get like a manifestation of the slaughter like Melanie gets in The Smell of Blood. So it's good. I like it. I like it a lot. Episode 8, Burned Out, is going in weird wrinkles, again, because there's a lot of things happening that makes it a little muddled. First, we get the Evil Lensic's father's story about how he died, and it was based, and we know that it was because of the spiral, and I think it's like heavily alluded that it is the distortion, if not Michael the Distortion in of itself, that does it. And then we get like a combo of the web and the desolation with Raymond Fielding and Agnes Montague and burning and stuff like that, and how he feels like he's about to burn alive. Then he leaves into the tree and he makes the tree fall, and then there's this box, and the box has a web design on it, and inside the box is an apple, was it? And then the apple has spiders in it. Real creepy stuff, but it's so muddled for me that it has to be in like B tier. It's not bad at all. It's just, a lot is happening right now. Episode 9 of Father's Love is going in weird wrinkles for me as well. More so because it's just not that exciting. It's just a lot of Julia Montauk talking about how her father dealt with like stuff and her disappearance of her mother and the calls that she gets, and I had to listen to it like a third time around to know that it was the dark that was like dealing with stuff here, because Robert Montauk murdering people and then keeping their jar of hearts of jars. It doesn't really connect to anything in the story besides like ritualistic stuff, and like the magic system in this series is very loosey goosey, and so obviously this is a thing for a ritual, but no one really not the ritual, for the fears, but like a protection ritual or something, or abjuration ritual or something like that. Either way, I don't really care for Julia Montauk's story here. She gets a lot more interesting as she gets older. I do enjoy the image of her looking down the street and seeing like the street lights just turning off. This is where we get the first mention of the still and lightless beast as well, but that is one of the weakest sort of depictions, or the still and lightless beast is one of the less touched upon things in this series, which I feel is a disservice to the still and lightless beast because it sounds so cool, but either way, it is what it is. Episode 10, Vampire Hunter. This will be the first one that is going into Your Neighbor Staples Meat to the Walls. The hunt episodes are, a lot of them are hit or miss. This one's a miss for me. Trevor Herbert, I don't care about. And his story about meeting different like vampires and killing them, and I think this is specifically when his brother and himself were taken by this woman and stuff like that. Again, like the vampires are not well described within the world, and it's just, I don't understand some things about the vampires. They're really cool depictions though. But yeah, I just don't really care for this episode. It's kind of boring, and it's creepy enough for me to like, yeah, it's fine. But sorry, Trevor Herbert, I like his other episode more. Children of the Night, with Allard Dupont and the Web Woman. But this one, nah, it's not for me. Episode 11, Dreamer. This episode is going Ghost Martin AU. It's really good. I like it a lot because the depiction of black tendrils that sort of predetermine who is going to die and stuff like that, and how it cannot be changed and stuff like that. Really cool concept, and to be able to see that and not be able to do anything is terrifying. And Antonio Blake / Oliver Banks is a really like interesting character, and I wish we got more about him. But we only get like a few episodes with him. But his story is really, really sad and tragic and beautiful. Once we get the culmination of the storyline in Far Away 121, this is a good primer for that a lot. And so I enjoy it for that reason. Episode 12, First Aid. I'm putting in Ghost Martin AU. Honestly, I just enjoy this episode. I think it's normal. I think it, if anything, any other person would probably just put it in Weird Wrinkles. I enjoy it a lot for some reason. I can't really tell why. Like, I can't really understand why. It's, we're talking about a 911 call, and they pick up this guy who's just fully burnt alive, and another guy who's also fully burnt, who's Jerry Key, and he got little like eye tattoos, and he wakes up, and the doctor's like, "Hey, what's happening?" And the guy's like, "I'm gonna kill this guy. His name's Diego Molina. Don't do anything." And he goes and like opens a safe because he knows the safe combo. It like the tone of it and the atmosphere of it feels very almost Lovecraftian to me. I can see this happening in some sort of like cosmic horror, which this is a cosmic horror, but you know what I mean, like a singular story of like weird culty stuff, and all of the people like getting up from the waiting room and leaving, and then them coming back without like noticing it. I'm like, that is so creepy. What is happening? This feels culty, which it is also, it is culty, but because of everything around it, this episode just works for me a lot, a lot. So yeah, I like this episode. Episode 13, Alone. I'm putting in The Song is Loud and Beautiful. The lonely episodes generally for me are also pretty hit or miss. This is one of the best lonely episodes because one, we have the first person who is not Johnny Sims acting as John Sims, voice acting, and that is a monumental sort of thing in this sort of anthology. We're 13 episodes in, and we finally have someone else speaking, and that is really fun, honestly. And then we have Naomi Hearn, who's talking about her fiance's death, which really feels for me. I feel for her. That's it. That's what I meant. And she goes to the funeral with the Lucas family, and they're like not accepting of her. They don't like her, and she leaves, and she almost gets stuck in the lonely. And she's running through like fields, and she like finds a cemetery, and there's an open spot, and she falls in or something like that, and she's almost lost, but she hears the voice of her fiance, Evan Lucas, being like, go elsewhere, go to the right or something. And she does that, and she gets out, she gets hit by a car, but it saves her. So that like implies that like something happened to Evan Lucas in terms of the lonely. And also retrospectively looking at Naomi Hearn in season 4, John mentions that the lonely is probably one of the most sinister because it relies on us to do our own to do its own work, and that's what Naomi does. Uh, she is marked by the lonely. She causes herself to be lonely. She decides to be lonely a lot, and so it really like retrospectively makes this episode a lot more thematically rich for me. Episode 14, Piecemeal. I love this episode. It's going in. The song is loud and beautiful. Lee Rantoul's voice, the voice of the technical writing of it, is so good because it's an immediate shift of like tone and addiction that we hear from all the other episodes. All the episodes, they feel like different people, but they feel like normal people, but this guy is a true criminal. The way he talks, the way he's acted by Johnny Sims, the way that John Sims gets into him, the way that it all works to sell this person's character in a very, very successful way. I remember listening to it and being kind of like very creeped out by pieces of his body appearing in boxes after he kills Noriega. What's his first name? Noriega. He wants to kill Noriega, so he goes to this old lady who has a bunch of puzzles on the wall and stuff, and she's like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill him. Just have patience." And he's like, "All right." And he does not have patience, kills Noriega, and then the curse is passed on to him, which feels like a very like morality sort of idea, sort of like true horror, like you did something, your flaws caused this to happen. And so now he's just falling apart, and then he just sort of like disappears because he got a package for his tongue, and he's like, I'm going to come to the Magnus Institute first before see if they can help me. They don't help him at all. And then he disappears, and then Tim goes and investigates, and the landlord shows him that his room was just full of cardboard boxes, which when I was listening to that, horrified me, because like the implication of obviously that he just fell apart and just became boxes, which is so fun and so horrifying, and the voice acting, it just sells it a lot more, and it's just a really good episode because of that. Episode 15, Lost John's Cave. Song is loud and beautiful. This is there any more buried episodes in this season? I don't think so. This is like the main buried episode here, and it was really, really terrifying. That's this woman going through these caves and talking about how good she feels in these caves, and how she is trying to like go out with her sister, and how she's trying to like share this moment with her sister, but things just get in the way, and then she gets kind of stuck, and then she's trying to get out. There's a moment where she's like in a tunnel, she's crawling, and I can't really figure out if she's supposed to be underwater or not, because there's like water there, but I don't know how much water is for there, but she keeps getting hit on the head. She's like trying to get out, she gets more panicked, and eventually it's just her sister doing a prank on her, and she goes ahead and she tries to backtrack, and the cave is stuck, and then she like just keeps moving forward. She finds like candles, I believe, and that's when she gets out, and her husband finds her, and he's like, you've been gone for like a full day, and we've been trying to look for you, and it's just really a lot has happened to her in these caves, which the statement itself is pretty good, pretty fine. However, after the fact, John's doing his investigations, like, yeah, we have no record of her sister disappearing, but we did get this recording, and it is the most horrifying noise I ever heard when I first listened to this. The most horrifying thing I've ever heard, of her crawling through the tunnels and whimpering, "Take her, not me." Oh, oh my gosh. Oh my God. And the way that she just doesn't realize she says that. She doesn't say anything about that in the statement. Whether that is her deliberately not saying that or her not even realizing that she was going through that. Terrifying. Oh my God. And she says something along the lines of, within the statement, something along the lines of being buried like that is such an intimate situation. I would not want to be with my sister. Oh my God. That's just, it hits a lot hard. So yeah, this episode really works for me a lot because of that ending as well. I wish they used more of that. I wish they used more of like actual found footage stuff to deliver some sort of horror. Would have been hard, but I at least 2 or 3 other times would have been great. But yeah, this episode is pretty high for me for that reason. So 16, arachnophobia. Your neighbor staples me to the walls. Called as Vitri is talking about how he keeps seeing a spider, and it keeps scaring him. He keeps killing it, and it keeps disappearing, and it keeps appearing again. And yeah, I don't care for it. The fact that it was a spider out for revenge is kind of funny to me because when he was younger, he like found a thing and he was like, what is that? And it was just a bunch of like tiny baby spider babies and they're just crawling all over him. That's creepy. But the fact that the spider was doing revenge on him, yeah, it's creepy, I guess. I love the cat. What was the cat's name? I don't remember the cat's name, but the cat's name, the governor? No. I forget what the cat's name was. Yeah, it was. I don't enjoy this episode that much. Like the creepiness is not the creepiness I want to get. And it's a ghost spider. It's a ghost spider. Episode 17, The Bone Turner's Tale. Ghost Martin AU. This episode is really creepy because it draws from ideas of, like, cursed books, such as Leitner's. It is a Leitner, but this feels less Leitner drawn from. Does that make sense? Like, I could see this story elsewhere, not within the Magnus Archives canon, and still works on its own. And we have Sebastian Adekoya, who is working at the library, and his friend Jared Hopworth annoys him, and then takes the book, and he's like, "Ooh, what is this book?" And then Jared Hopworth starts changing and begins to become the Bone Turner, and this sets up a lot for the future. And then it's implied that Sebastian Adekoya is killed by Jared Hopworth. The police say that he was hit by a hit and run. Everyone believes that. Everyone clapped. But yeah, I like this episode a lot, so it's going in Ghost Martin AU. Episode 18, The Man Upstairs. Ironically, is not going in Your Neighbor Staples Me to the Walls. It's going in I Itch All the Time. I think that when episodes focus on the fear of the flesh in terms of body horror, it works. When they focus on gross meat, it don't. And this is gross meat stapled to the walls, and I don't. It's gross and not in an exciting way, and he's just stapling me to the walls, and then there's like a meat thing, a monster thing that has eyes. That is the guy. Yeah, I don't, like, I mean, we had Bone Turner literally the episode prior, which dealt with body and body horror, but here it's just meat. No, I don't. Sorry, I do not like this episode. Anything with meat is just grody and not an exciting way, and I think body horror should be the focus for the flesh. This just doesn't do it for me. Sorry. Episode 19, Confession. I'll go ahead and add in episode 20 as well. Desecrated Host. They're both going in Your Neighbor Staples Meat to the Walls. So with the Father Burrows storyline, it marks the midpoint of the season and has a little story arc because this began with 8 burned out. But the fact that there are so many different fears attacking Father Burrows, that's fun, but also feels weird because why is this one guy being beaten down by so many things at the same time? You know, like why him? There are some really good aspects about it. When he is investigating this girl's like uh insanity or whatever, and he like shows, what is it, wallpaper, there's written Mentis or something, and the girl can't even see what he's talking about. That's creepy. When he goes to like confess or something, and he talks to like his superior, and the superior says something about him, about his past or something like that, and it like scares him. He leaves and then bumps into his superior elsewhere, and so it's like, oh, he was talking to something who was not that. That was fun. And then there was I think it was the girl who's being possessed says to him, it wants your faith. Great. Horrifying. Everything else, eh. I mean, the this just is not connected to the wider storyline, so it's not so exciting for me. And there's just so many things happening, so many things occurring, that it becomes so muddled that I just don't really want to pay attention to what's happening. I have to force myself to like focus to know what's happening. And it's because I have to do so much legwork for myself to be able to like enjoy the episode. No, sorry. I'm not. It's C tier. It's C tier. It's not. It's well written, which is why it's not it's all the time. But yeah, no, I'm sorry. I just cannot deal with this episode. Episode 21, Free Fall, is going in The Song is Loud and Beautiful. Similar to The Slaughter, I love the Vast so much. And this Vast episode is really fun. We have Robert Kelly, well, it's Moira Kelly talking about her son, Robert Kelly, who goes skydiving, and the instructor there, or the person he works with, their last name is Fairchild, and they're doing skydiving for this old man named Simon. And Simon, as before they do the skydive, says, enjoy sky blue or something along those lines. And Robert jumps, and he's just lost in the vast, and he's just falling continuously. There's sky all over. I forget exactly how he gets out, but eventually he lands, and the people there are like, you were supposed to land like 15 minutes ago. What happened? Where were you? And he's like, I don't know. And he goes to his mom, because they're like really close. And he tells her about this, and she feels really bad about it. And so he's just living with her because he's dealing with this trauma. And they go to a picnic, and they go to like this high like hill spot, like it's right across from their house. And she's like talking about she cannot understand what happened, and the closest thing she could say is that the sky ate her son. Ugh, that imagery, ugh, visceral, beautiful, terrifying, and I enjoy it a lot. The Vast episode this season. This is the Vast episode for me. Considering XL Tiara, this is the Vast episode. This made me scared of the Vast. Honestly, yeah, I love this episode so much. Episode 22, Colony. Yeah, at the end of episode 21, we have Martin coming in with like squelching sounds. And so episode 22, Colony, is a big shakeup of everything that happens prior. Ghost Martin AU. Non-Ghost Martin comes in and talks to John about his statement. And he talks about how he was investigating Carlos Vitry, and he remembers hearing about like there were worms that Carlos Vitry like mentioned, and he Martin like breaks into the attic, goes upstairs, meets a bunch of people, leaves, whatever. He sees the worms, leaves, comes back with like a flashlight or something like that, and he goes into the attic, and there's like a woman there in a red dress, and it's Jane Prentice, and a worm tries to get him, and he like steps back or whatever. The worm doesn't get him, and he leaves to his apartment. I think he drops his phone at that point, and he like blocks all the entrances, and then Jane Prentice is just stalking him, and he's under siege, and he's stuck in there for like a long time, like a significantly long time for someone to be alone there with that much fear. Which, oh my God, Martin, I forget that happened to you. I think the majority of the fandom also forgets that happened to you. So poor boy, poor boy. And then she just leaves, and then this is when he comes to the institute and tells his story, and John is like, "You were sick with your stomach." He's like, "I lost my phone, bro." And then he gets a message from Martin's phone telling it's Jane. Jane sending her a message. We talked about this in my season 1 video. But yeah, I like this episode because it is a big monumental change about everything that happens. So, A tier for me. Episode 23, Schwarzwald. It is going in Your Neighbor Staples Meat to the Walls. The majority of the episodes in the Magnus archives, that is a letter to Jonah Magnus, one of his friends dealing with something in the past. I don't really enjoy, though flowery writing is hard to focus on, and the things that happen are heavy allusions. There's less of things happening and more of things implied, and so there's a lot of implication in these letters. Schwarzwald is no different. So we have, what's his name, Albrecht von Closen, going to his some estate. I want to say his uncle's, but that sounds wrong, but whatever. And he's there, and he finds a mausoleum, and there's a bunch of books in there, and he takes the books, and then as he goes back to take more books, there's a guy without eyes who appears and tries to kill him. And then he's like, "Oh, there's something over there," and he leaves. And that's the end of it. And John's like, "Yeah, there's a guy who died, who was ripped apart by wolves or something like that." There's a lot of implications. So as I mentioned, that Albrecht found a coin that said something in German and took it. It's implied that the man without eyes was hunting down whoever took the stuff from the mausoleum, and the guy who pickpockets, the servant who pickpockets, gets killed by him. And that's just a lot of implication versus actual horror for me. And like, you have to jump through a handful of hoops to get to that conclusion. Also, the conclusion that this is not where, wouldn't say this is where Leitner books come from, but this is definitely where the majority of the horror books, cursed books that we get that eventually become Leitner books come from. And also an implication that Mary Key is connected to Von Closen somehow. I don't know. This is a lot of implication. It's kind of boring as well. So yeah, this episode is going in this C tier for me. Episode 24, Strange Music, the Calliope, Weird Wrinkles. I like this episode, but it is kind of boring. The horror doesn't happen until like a little bit later, which is when so I forget her first name, but the last name is definitely Denikin or something like that. She finds the Calliope and finds a bunch of clown dolls in there, and her boyfriend's not very supportive, and whenever they play the music, they feel weird, and then he breaks up with her or whatever. It's not even like, there's also an implication of him doing something really bad, and I'm like, is that really bad thing is him cheating? But they never talk about it. So she's like, I don't want to talk about it or whatever. Ugh. And then he dies first. His jaw is ripped off, which is like, whoa, that's visceral. And he turns into like a little doll, and she's like, yeah, I know it was him. And then the Calliope was taken from her by Beacon and Hope. But yeah, it was well written. It's pretty creepy, but the only like notable thing about it is that it introduces the Denikins, the Orzanov, and the Circus of the Other sort of storyline. This is like the beginning of it. Oh, and we also get Sasha. That's the most important part for me. Is this episode is Sasha appearing for the first time in voice form Love Sasha. So yeah, that's why I'm putting it in this. It's unremarkably good. Let's say that. Episode 25, Growing Dark. I'm putting in weird wrinkles. Majority of the dark episodes, I just thought I don't like. It's just find them kind of boring. They do interesting stuff, but it seems so like the connected tissues of the episodes of the dark that connect to the wider storyline are not well developed. Like, why is Natalie Ennis eating weird food? What is that? What is that about? That's I cannot stop thinking about her just eating like really weird, what is it, lettuce or something like that, like really bad lettuce. Um, but the idea of your roommate dealing with like the light um, and turning the lights off and unscrewing the light bulbs, that's actually pretty innovative, you know, because normally you think about like breaking the light bulb, but no, it's just slightly unscrewing them so they just don't work. That's pretty fun. But the boyfriend going into Hither Green Chapel and um, trying to like find his way in the dark, that saves it for me because that part's really scary and how everything changes in the dark. And then the idea that, oh, I have my phone, turned on the light of the phone, disrupts everything. That's so fun. Otherwise, the rest of the story, I don't care for it. Natalie Ellis, she comes back like one or two other times, and I don't know. And pretty fine episode, BTR. Episode 26, A Distortion. I'm putting in Ghostmart and AU. This is when we have Sasha telling John about her encounter with Michael. It's just this guy. He's kind of creepy now. She sees him through like this weird glass that has like little bubbles, which I think is what I have depicted here. Which I'm like, how can you see someone through that? But whatever. It might be the larger ones, but it doesn't matter. I couldn't find pictures for that. And Michael's like, do you want to help your friends? You will meet me here at this, was it a cemetery? I feel like it was a bar or an abandoned bar or something like that. Whatever. And Sasha's like, this feels sus. She goes anyways. Girl, where is your sense of self-preservation? But hey, it turns out for the better because she finds the dead body of Timothy Hodge, the statement giver, episode 6, Squirm, and covered by worms. And Michael's like, here, and presents her like, how's it go? It's too dangerous to proceed without this, and it's a CO2 canister, and she uses it to kill the worms. One manages to burrow into her, but Michael picks it out of her and like leaves like a gash open for her, which is why she's injured. And yeah, this is where we have the introduction of Michael the Distortion, because Michael the Distortion is a very big part of the story. And Sasha's story is, I love Sasha James, and the introduction of the CO2 canisters and the continuation of the Jane Prentice storyline. A lot of things are happening in this episode that are really, really good, really narrowed as well. And I like it a lot. So, goes Martin AU. Episode 27, A Sturdy Lock. I itch all the time. I'm sorry. It's a spiral episode, but this spiral episode doesn't really work for me because the guy, the old man, Paul Mackenzie, was it? It was Paul or Marcus? One of those is the son, one of those is the father. Either Marcus Mackenzie or Paul Mackenzie. I'm going to say it's Paul Mackenzie. Old man, stuck alone at a home, and he keeps hearing the door trying to open, and he keeps locking the door, making sure nothing comes in, and he keeps having this fear, and he keeps calling the cops. The cops are like, you are going insane, old man. And then eventually, I don't know, it just stops or something like that. He has a heart attack. He has a heart attack and just dies of normal causes, not caused by the spiral, because Helen was like, oh yeah, we really wanted to get him, but he died before we got to him, so oh well. Anyways, yeah, no, there's like at the end of this little sting of horror is like, oh, there's no actual lock on the door. I'm like, okay, that's great. That's not satisfying to me. So this episode just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry, Paul Mackenzie. You deserve better, Paul Mackenzie. So 28, Skin Tight. Goes Martin AU mainly for Melanie King because Melanie King is a great character. Her voice acting is superb. Uh, her banter with John and how much they hate each other is so entertaining to watch. Her story about Sarah Baldwin. I don't know if people caught on to Sarah Baldwin being a victim of the anglerfish, but either way, just this woman who skin kind of shifts around and moves, and she staples it down. Really creepy, uh, creepy sort of way to meet her, and this creepy atmosphere as well. And at the end, there's the picture of Sarah Baldwin talking to someone who's like floating, and like it's assumed that it's like a slaughter ghost because they're in like a hospital for like a war or whatever. Yeah, I don't really care about that, but episode really well written, really good introduction for Melanie King as well. Episode 29, Cheating Death. I'm putting in Your Neighbor Staples Me to the Walls. It is an episode of The End, and it's about Nathaniel Thorpe, who is a soldier who plays a game of tarot. Yeah, and becomes a Reaper. And it's sort of creepy in that, like, this guy's immortal now, and he's doing this to other people, but otherwise, it just doesn't do anything for me. It's not exciting. Um, I like the idea of someone in the past dealing with this, like I think this was what Revolutionary War, but I just don't find this episode very exciting, honestly. I think the idea that death plays with games of chance and the end deals with games of chance is pretty interesting concept. They don't really push it as much in the entirety of the Magnus archives. They push it more in the Magnus Protocol, which I do like the depiction there. But here, this is the only one that really does like game of chance for the end, and doesn't they don't like flush it out more. So it's not that good for me, honestly. Episode 30, Killing Floor. I'm putting in Weird Wrinkles. It has a really good atmosphere. It has a really good like setting, and the idea that of this person being stuck in a never-ending tunnel of a slaughterhouse of an abattoir. Really, really fun. Uh, Considering it is an episode of The Slaughter. Like I've said, like I think the technique and the writing of it and the atmosphere makes up for it being like tangentially related to the slaughter. I mean, how can the slaughter make a large unending slaughterhouse? Slaughter the flesh. Oh my god. Yeah, see, I also confused this episode. I thought this episode was considered the slaughter because it's about killing and stuff, but it's about the flesh. It's about meat. And it's just kind of confusing, but it's so beautifully written, honestly. So because of that, it's going in the middle of the road. Weird Wrinkles. I don't really have much to say about this episode. Tom Han is there. The way that Tom Han is like described he goes up to someone. He says, "The slaughter doesn't end when you close a door," and then he's like found later covered in like was it bolt gun wounds, and he shoots himself, and that seems to be like his ascension, his apotheosis into becoming an avatar of the flesh. That's fun. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about this episode besides it's a flesh episode that is well written. So at this point, uh, when I was making the ranking pictures that you see, I'm using a tier maker or whatever, and with the 40 episodes in there ready to be dragged, and the bunch of crunch of ads. There's so many ads on that. It slows it down a lot, and I had messed up prior and dragged different things different where they shouldn't be, and that took a long time to like fix. And by the time I found this mistake was like I'd already finished. So yes, unfortunately, episode 20, the marker is going to be in A tier for the rest of the episode until I fix it later. But I was like, I'm not going to try to fix that again. I was going to take too much time. So, anyways, episode 31, the first hunt. I'm putting in Your Neighbor Staples Me to the Walls. This hunt episode just doesn't work for me. It's two hunters, one British, one American, going out and being hunted by a werewolf. and it's so disconnected from everything. And there's some good horror elements in terms of the guy singing, and it feels very Most Dangerous Game, and I didn't enjoy the Most Dangerous Game, and I didn't enjoy this one either. There was one imagery that I do remember well. I was talking about how the werewolf's hair was inside or something like that, akin to that. That was fun. Either ways, I didn't care for this episode. Episode 32, Hive. The song is loud and beautiful. Ugh, this episode is written so very well. It's horrifying the way that it's performed. It feels like creeping. I got goosebumps a lot of the times. The way that Jane talks about the corruption and the like feeling of the horror of the entity without really knowing what it is, and how she says it like it hates you and I don't know why it hates you, and then later it's like I know why it hates you because you're useless. And just her depiction of her decline mentally into becoming an avatar of this of the corruption, and seeing the wasp's nest and just eating it, or like she puts her hand in it eventually or whatever. Great. There's a slight disconnect for me in the overall story about how she was dealing with a wasp's nest, and then she had worms on her body. I don't get that part that so much, but it's negligible considering it's horrifying either way. And yeah, this episode is written really, really well. It's the way that she talks about how empty she feels and how she needs this sort of like ever-encompassing love for herself is terrifying. And yeah, it also talks about how she killed a bunch of people in the hospital trying to help her, and how she just disappeared into the night. Whoosh. Ooh, so good, so good. Ow, one of the best written episodes in the entirety of the Magnus. Episode 33, A Boatswain's Call. I'm putting in weird wrinkles. It's pretty middle of the road. Don't really have much to say about this episode besides, Peter Lucas is there, and this is like in terms of implications in horror, this has a pretty good one in a way, because so we have the woman who's on the ship, and she's dealing with the people there, and they all just get up all of a sudden and just leave on a boat. And she's like, where's this one guy? And they blow the boatswain whistle, and the guy is no longer there when they get back on the ship. And then John's talking about the investigation of it, and talks about how the guy's body was found 6 months later, and it looks like he drowned like a week prior. Implies that he got sent to the Lonely and had to kill himself to get out. Which I talked about this in my kill count video about this from the season. But yeah, it's really, that implication is pretty horrifying to me. Otherwise, the events of the statement in of itself are pretty run of the mill, middle of the park, middle of the road. So I don't really have that much to say about this episode. Episode 34, Anatomy Class. I've seen a lot of people love this episode, and I don't see why. It's not bad. It's just no. I don't. The anatomy students being named the names that you would call something, a body that you do not know their names, like John Doe. How does the professor not know that? How does the professor not know at least John Doe? Like the other ones from different countries, yeah. I mean, it's understandable he would not. But John Doe is a definite huge red flag, and the fact that he didn't realize that kind of like takes me out of it for a little bit. And it's but it was entertaining to see them try to interact with the professor and be like, "Is this how a heart works?" And I wish honestly that we got those anatomy students coming back besides just Max Munsterman and a probable Jane/John Doe. That Jane/John Doe in season 5 is could be attributed or not. It doesn't really, you can't really say. Max Musterman is definitely one of those students, but the other people don't come back. And I kind of wanted, like, if we got so much buildup about their characters and how they learn and stuff like that, I wanted more of them in the future, and we don't get that. So why do all this legwork to try to endear us to these characters, which didn't even work for me, and then just not do anything with it? That's great. That's great. Middle of the road, Weird Wrinkles, B tier. Episode 35, Old Passages. We have renovation of a nightclub, and they find some tunnels and a young version of Jerry Key is there, and there's a bunch of tunnels that depict different aspects of the fears, and a mention of Robert Smirk. Stop. And a mention of Robert Smirk, and it's pretty fine for me. I like the idea of all these tunnels that have like different things happening to them. Someone just dies in the tunnel for the end, which is sad. But like there's not much in this episode to be like scared about. It really just sets up Robert Smirk as like a central idea of the fears and the categorization, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's not badly written at all, just not much to say about this episode either. Episode 36, Teen Ill. I love this episode. It is going in Ghostmart and AU. We have a what is it, funeral director? Is that what it's called? I forget what it's called. They pick up dead bodies, cremate them, funeral home, funeral stuff, which you'd think would be about the end, but it's not, which I enjoy a lot. Kind of subversion of ideas here. They get a call from Alenka Kozul, who works at the Ivy Meadows retirement home, and she says, "Come help us. We've been taken ill." And the woman and her cousin go and meet a man who is the new director, and he says, "My name's John Amherst." And they're like, "He looks disgusting. He looks sickly. His suit is too big for his body." And he tries shaking their hands, and a fly lands on his eye, and then leaves. And they take the body, and I think the body, like one of the hand of the body, lands on the hand of the woman, but she has gloves, but she still feels like a burning. And then they take the body back to the funeral place, and her grandfather or father, I forget what it was, hears about this story that they tell him, and he makes some calls, and they burn the body so quickly, like one of the quickest like burnings they've seen. And she's still a little curious about it, and she gets another call from Alenka Kozul saying again how they've taken ill. She goes to the retirement home, and she sees Alenka Kozul on the window, like hitting the window, and she sees like bugs like pour out of her and like die from that. And she like runs away. But at the same time, an older man and a woman like stop her, and they let her go. And then as she's leaving, she sees like fire rising from the Ivy Meadows care home. And then at the end of it, John is like, sounds like Trevor Herbert. But before he says Trevor Herbert, he gets interrupted because I forgot to say a few episodes ago. I forgot what episode it was. A few episodes ago, Bregan and Hope appear and deliver a package. And here we have the discussion of that. But yes, this episode really, really cool. I like it. John Amherst is a interesting character that gets fully fleshed out later on, and the dealings with the Ivy Meadows care home, everything feels so fun and horrifying, and it's just really well written and really good. I like it a lot. Episode 37, Burnt Offerings, going in Weird Wrinkles. We have a man who is like pleading, like, "Please do not take my son. This is what's happening. I went out. I'm a biologist, and I went into the forest to like survey, and I found this like circle, this ritual site, and I like stole a bunch of things, and it broke everything, and now everything is burning. My entire life is burning down. My car is burning down. My house burned down. My wife died. I assume being burnt alive. And that was it. And then John's like, yeah, he didn't lose his son. That is, he did die, but his son's still alive. Um, which, silver linings, I guess. And John talks about how, like, yeah, this guy, he showed his stuff and the stuff that he took, and it is just a picture of Gertrude Robinson. Episode ends, which is that's great cliffhanger in a way, or no, just added mystery to the story. So, but otherwise, his life being destroyed and the ritual in of itself. I mean, the bulk of the statement is just him finding a ritual, and the things that he finds there, is creepy in a way. But yeah, there's nothing like really exciting for me in this episode. Episode 38, Lost and Found. I'm putting in Ghost Martin AU. This is the homophobic boss. We have a man. I think his name's also David. David Romeo. No, his husband's name's David. I forget exactly. One of them's David. One of them's last name is Romero. I think it's the same person. Whatever. There is an antique selling of he goes to an antique sell and he meets with Mikhail Salesa, who came. I didn't mention Mikhail Salesa in Piecemeal, but now I'm mentioning him here, so good for him. Thank you, Tablet. It's Andre Romeo, and his husband is David, I assume Romeo, and he is at this auction and he sees this really intricately carved vase that's like blue and white, and he takes it, and Mikhail Salesa is like, "Are you sure about that?" And he's like, "Yeah, it looks really cool." And he's like, "Great." And then like later on, he asks Mikhail Salesa, "Hey, you didn't charge me for the vase?" And Mikhail's like, "What vase?" And then he starts losing stuff, and people are like, "You never had that." Like he loses his like shoe, or he loses his like favorite book, and his husband's like, "You never had like a favorite book. You didn't have a favorite shoe or whatever." And at one point, he's just staring at the vase, and he sees like hands reach out, and which is like creepy. And then his husband's gone, and everyone's like, you never had a husband. You never had any husband. What are you talking about?" Ah, and then when they're doing the investigation, John and his team find a marriage certificate that is only half filled in, and it's like it was without that marriage certificate by itself. Was he actually going insane, or was the boss actually taking stuff? It really plays around with that, which I enjoy. And then obviously, yeah, it's the spiral of the boss took his boyfriend, the homophobic boss. But yeah, it was really fun, and also, they were married, gay married. They were gay married before gay marriage was legal in the UK, which gay rights. One of them did die though. But yeah, I like this episode a lot, and this is the beginning of the end, where John sees a worm, and he sees a spider. And he kills a spider, and it breaks the wall. And that begins episode 39, Infestation, which is going in Ghost Martin AU. I enjoy this episode. In that it keeps moving, there's stuff keeps happening. And I've talked a lot about this a lot already in my season 1 retrospective about how good this episode is, so I'm not going to elucidate any further. It is an A-tier episode for me, same as its counterpart, episode 40, Human Remains. I want to mention some episodes of the Magnus Archives are really fun because the name of the episode does double work. Like with Burned Out, it's obviously about like working too much, but also about being burned, which is fun wordplay. And then Human Remains, it can be taken as either like the remainder of the people at the institute and like what happens after the attack, human who remains, the remains of Gertrude Robinson, her body being found, who had died, and so that's a human remains that's there, and also just talking about like the death of Jane Prentice and stuff like that. It does dual stuff for that. I already said a lot about this episode, so I'm just sort of like pulling for ideas, but A tier because it's really good. And yeah, that is my ranking. These are my final rankings. I reorganized them in a way that like shows which ones are the best within each ranking. The top 6 are just really, really good in a way. And here you can see I did fix episode 20 and I put it back to where it should be. So sorry about that. I didn't want to try to fix that because it was really annoying. And yeah, that is my ranking video. Let me know if you agree with the rankings. Let me know if which episodes you would rank higher or lower. And thank you very much for listening. Keep an eye out for the hiatus is going to be ending soon, so I will be putting out my video. I don't know if before or after this video. We shall see. Remains to be seen. But yeah, I had a lot of fun ranking these episodes, and I hope you had a lot of fun too. Thank you very much. Stay away from worms, and I will see you in the next video.